What is going on, everyone? My name is Andy. Welcome back to another FPL video. In this one, it's my watch list for Game Week 25. So I'm going to go through some of the players that I've got my eye on, starting off with Cody Gakpo. Now, before I talk about him specifically, I want to talk about the Liverpool attack in general. Fixture-wise, things look pretty good over the next 4 game weeks. They've got a double game week this week of Crystal Palace away and Wolves at home. That looks decent on paper. I know they lost 3-0 to Wolves recently. That's not a result I would expect to continue to happen moving forward, mostly because the Liverpool expected goal numbers still look really healthy, and I think they just are a decent attack. But I'll talk about that a little bit more in a minute. Game week 26 is much tougher. The Man United defence is much improved. Casemiro will be back at that point as well. But I do think it's a case of good Man United defence, good Liverpool attack. Who will come out on top? Liverpool will get chances in that game. And I'm not saying I would usually go out and target that fixture. But when it's sandwiched between a good double game week and a good fixture in 27 of Bournemouth away, it wouldn't put me off bringing Liverpool players in. And then in game week 28, you've got Fulham at home. Now, that game may or may not be on. It's all based on the FA Cup results. We'll know those results before game week 26, but unfortunately we won't know them before game week 25. Fulham are playing Leeds in the FA Cup. If Fulham beat Leeds, that fixture will be off. If Leeds beat Fulham, that fixture will be on. Now, Fulham will be favourites because they're at home and they've just been the better side this season, but it's an all Premier League tie, so you just never know. The way I'm looking at it is, it's very difficult to know what your chip strategy is before game week 26. So I'm just going to play what's in front of me, which is a good double game week, with an outside shot of getting Fulham at home in game week 28. And if that fixture ended up being on, I think targeting Liverpool attackers for the next 4 game weeks just looks really good. The chances are I'm not going to be set up well enough for 27, 28, 29, whatever happens. I'm going to have to use a chip. So when I don't know what that chip is right now, I feel like just play what's in front of you and hope that that game week 28 fixture is on. And if it's not, we'll deal with it later on. So I like Liverpool players from a fixtures perspective. From a numbers perspective, they haven't scored as many goals as you'd usually expect from them. They've scored 38 from an expected goals of 39.9. So they're actually slightly underperforming. You could say it's just bad finishing. I know whenever I talk about this on Twitter, someone says it's Darwin Nunez tax or something like that. But sometimes teams go on this run, and it's just unfortunate. To put that into perspective, Man United have scored 3 more goals, but their expected goals is actually 1 lower. Spurs have scored 44 goals from an expected goals of 34.7. So again, I'm not saying they've overperformed. I'm just saying that Liverpool, you would usually expect them to score more goals. And I think that recent finishing slump where they got 0 goals in 3 or 4 games, that's just not likely to happen moving forward. And even if you look a bit more recently, even if you say, well, since the World Cup, they've not been great. Against Newcastle, they put up 2.4 XG, Everton 2.2. That Wolves game where they scored no goals, they put up 1.8, 1.4 against Chelsea, etc., etc. The numbers just continue to look really good. And that is why I have some confidence in Liverpool. And I think the fact that a lot of FPL managers right now just have little confidence in Liverpool and they might avoid going for a double or a triple up. It just makes me want to go for them even more because it's very rare you get Liverpool as somewhat differentials with these upcoming fixtures. Now, that's Liverpool in general. Let's talk about Gakpo. 7.7 million looks like a pretty good price. He seems to be, I don't know, playing a little bit better in the last few fixtures. Maybe it took a bit of time to get used to being in the Premier League at Liverpool, etc. He scored a couple of goals now as well, so that's good. I think for a lot of us, the fact he's a midfielder really helps, especially if you've still got Bruno Fernandes, because for a lot of us, we're going to have to sell him, even though he's done really well, and getting a Liverpool midfielder for 7.7 is handy, especially when he's basically playing as the number 9 right now. Because Darwin Nunez, Jota and Firmino are all listed as forwards. The problem is those three players are also an issue for Gakpo. Now, at the time of recording, all we know is Darwin Nunez came off with a shoulder injury. We don't know if he's going to be out. We've got press conferences to come this week before the Champions League and before the Premier League. We've got the Champions League game to watch as well. If Darwin Nunez is out, I really like Gakpo, even more than maybe I would anyway, because that is one less player in that attack. So we know Salah is always going to play on the right. You've then got Jota, Firmino, Gakpo and Darwin to fill the other 2 spots. If Darwin Nunez is out, it's suddenly 3 players and 2 of them haven't started a match for a little while. And last week, before the Newcastle game, Klopp said that Jota and Firmino didn't have the fitness to play in what would be quite an intense game from the start, right? The intensity of games is usually more difficult in the beginning, so that's what he was saying. Now, they've got another few minutes off the bench as well, so they're continuing to improve their fitness, but I wouldn't expect them to suddenly both start a game. If Darwin's out, we could see Jota, Gakpo, Salah, and Firmino might come on later. So I think the idea of Gakpo getting 180 minutes in Game Week 25 is just not going to happen, but he might get 120 or 130, and that could be enough. My main issue is not Game Week 25, it's moving forward. And his minutes might not be as good by the time we get to Man United or Bournemouth or even to that possible Fulham game as well. But for me, whoever I bring in Game Week 25 will probably go for a Brighton midfielder in Game Week 27 for the double anyway. So I only need them for 25. So if you're looking for a short-term punt, I really like him at 7.7. But let's keep an eye on what happens with Darwin Núñez, because if he's fit, then I think the minutes of all four of those players I mentioned gets a little bit tougher. But although he's only on 4.2 points per match, his expected goal numbers personally are pretty good, like 0.62 per 90 minutes. That is on a kind of, small sample size and stuff like that, but it still looks good. He's scoring 0.46 goals per 90 minutes as well. So he looks like a good attacker, maybe coming into his own a little bit of form going into 25. He looks decent. I just would rather have Darwin Núñez out before I committed. No, it's not an April Fool's joke. I really am considering the possibility of getting an Everton attacker this week. And if you didn't think I'd lost the plot from holding Salah for so long, you may well think I've lost it now. So Iwobi and McNeil are the two that I'm looking at. Essentially, I need a midfield placeholder to then get someone like Mitoma or McAllister for their double game week later on. And with the transfers I'm looking at as it stands, I've only got 7.6 million or below to spend. And Gakpo is 7.7, and he may well rise in price before the deadline as well. I might take a hit in order to get Gakpo instead, but if not, I think the Everton midfielders are probably my second best options. And if you think about the fixtures in Game Week 25, you got 4 teams with a double. Liverpool, I've already talked about Salah and Gakpo. Arsenal, I'm tripled up. Then you've got Everton, which is where Iwobi and McNeil come in, or you've got Wolves. Now, you could take a punt on someone like Sarabia. He's got Fulham away and Liverpool away, and on paper, that might be just as good, if not better, than Villa at home and Arsenal away, which is what Everton have got. But I'm thinking worst case scenario, that what happens if I bring them in with the intention of getting a Brighton midfielder, but one of my other midfielders gets injured, so I just end up replacing them instead, and I've got to hold on to my Everton midfielder for a bit longer, which I definitely don't want to do, but I'm thinking worst case scenario. Now with Everton, they've got Nottingham Forest away in Game Week 26, Brentford at home in 27, which are not bad. They've got a guaranteed fixture in 28, which is Chelsea away. And don't get me wrong, I do not want to be in a position where I'm playing Alex Iwobi or Dwight McNeil against Chelsea away. But if worst comes to the worst, at least they're going to get minutes that week. And in Game Week 32, another blank game week, they've got guaranteed minutes there, guaranteed fixture there as well. Obviously, I may well have used my chips by that point. I'm literally thinking worst case scenario. Whereas with Wolves, it's a little bit different in that, yes, they've got the double this week, but then it's Spurs at home and Newcastle away, which is tougher than what Everton have got. This fixture, as we've discussed a lot, is not guaranteed to be on in Game Week 28. It's based on the FA Cup. And they've got Leicester in Game Week 32, who are also still in the FA Cup. They might go out by that point, and that fixture might be on, but it's not guaranteed. So that's why I'm looking at an Everton midfielder instead of a Wolves one. And you may say, double game weeks are overrated. If you're looking at Sarabia, McNeil or Iwobi, you should just go for a single game weeker instead. And I'm open to that, but who are the best options? Like, you could look at Ward-Prowse away to Leeds, but is he better than going for a double game weeker? I'm not sure. Leicester have got Arsenal at home, tricky fixture. Maddison is more than 7.6. West Ham, punt on Jared Bowen against Nottingham Forest at home. I'm open to that. He's 8 million, so I can't afford it. And same with Mahrez, he's more than 7.6, and he's not even guaranteed to play that week. So I feel like I'm almost like, if I can't afford Gakpo, I've got to go for the Everton kind of player instead. And don't get me wrong, they're both awful. I would not want them in my team for too long, but for a punt in a double game week, I'm open to it. Now, minutes-wise, Iwobi tends to get 90 minutes every single week and has done for most of this season. That hasn't been the case for Dwight McNeil, but since Sean Dyche came in, he's been getting more regular minutes. That's why I've looked at the last 3 matches, because that's how many games Dyche has been in charge for. And McNeil has played 257, so he's played 90, 90 and 77, which is decent. At least minutes-wise. When you start looking at expected goals, expected assists, it's just really bad for both of them. Over the season, McNeil is 0.27 per 90. Iwobi is 0.21, which is obviously worse, but his minutes are more guaranteed. Over the 3 matches that Sean Dyche has been in charge for, they both on 0.1 total expected goals. That's not per 90 minutes, that's total over 3 matches. McNeil's slightly ahead on expected assists, 1.1 versus 0.7, and he is on a lot of set pieces as well, so that helps. Points per match, very similar. They've both got 1 assist. Sorry, it's not 1 goal and 1 assist, it's just 1 assist, right? So goals and assists combined, they've got 1 each over the last 3 weeks. So they're both awful, and I think if you want to go for the guy that's guaranteed minutes, you go for Iwobi. The reason that I'm looking at McNeil is he is on my wall of shirts, which I think I've got here. Yeah, he's on the wall behind me, right? You can't see because the chair's there, but this Dwight McNeil next to Raul Jimenez, because when he played for Burnley, I needed someone cheap, a little bit like a similar situation to this week, and he was cheap and he played and he got me 14 points on my bench boost. He should have had another assist. If you've watched me for a while, you know I'm still bitter about that. He should have had 17 points, but even so, 14 was great. And I'm kind of just going for nostalgia here, that I need a cheap Everton midfielder. Iwobi's got the minutes, but I've got good memories of McNeil. He seems to be getting more minutes under Sean Dyche. He is awful. His expected numbers are really bad, but he's got 2 fixtures to try and get me something. And if he got 4 points from appearances, so didn't get a yellow card or anything like that, and got me 1 assist or 1 goal, I'd probably take that right now. So I'm looking at both of these, and I think more and more people might start to look at them as we get closer to the deadline. You want the guaranteed minutes, you go for Iwobi. If you want that nostalgia pick, who's short-term anyway, I'm currently looking at Dwight McNeil, and I feel like I've got to go for him at this point because I've talked about him so much, but that's why I'm looking at both of them. So unless he ends up getting injured in training or during the Champions League match or something like that, I'd be very surprised if Trent Alexander-Arnold doesn't make it into my FPL squad by the time we get to Friday's deadline. I have to say, I'm not as confident with Liverpool's defence as I am with the attack. I know Van Dijk is back, so obviously that's a bit of a boost, but when you look at the entire season, where Van Dijk's played quite a lot, Liverpool are sitting 10th in terms of expected goals conceded per 90 minutes, which just isn't great, but I feel like it's not a bad time to jump on, because one, they've got some fixtures where they could get clean sheets over the next 4, but also it's a time where there's not a huge amount of other defender options. So Arsenal defender obviously looks good this week with a double, but the other 2 really popular defenders for the last few weeks, Trippier and Shaw, they both blank in game week 25 anyway, and Trippier's got Man City away in 26 and Luke Shaw's got Liverpool away. I would say neither of them are better than Trent at home to Man United, and then you've got Bournemouth away in 27 and a possible fixture in 28 as well. So I think it's just a good time to go for a Liverpool defender, especially someone like Trent. And when we've seen him for most of this, I'm not saying the last couple of game weeks because he's looked better, but for most of this season, when you've watched him, he's looked below his usual standard, and yet he's still outputting 0.3 expected assists per 90 and 0.08 expected goals per 90. So really good attacking numbers. You could go for a different Liverpool defender. On the stream yesterday, a lot of people mentioned Joe Gomez, but unless Konate and Matip were injured, I just probably wouldn't go there. Also, I've got the money to spend on someone better, so I would go for the more secure minutes. There is every chance that Van Dijk and Gomez are the centre-back partnership for both of those games, but if Matip is fit, he could also play one as well. So I'm not really interested in going for Gomez. Van Dijk, when fit, is guaranteed minutes, and he does have some goal threat from set pieces, but I prefer Trent's overall attacking output, right? And he's really good for bonus as well because of the amount of chances he creates. So I prefer Trent over Van Dijk. The other option is Robertson, and look, Trent and Robertson can both be rested. We know that Tsimikas can play left back and Milner can play right back. But in Tsimikas, you've got an actual left back. With Milner, you've got kind of a makeshift right back. So I always feel like Trent's minutes are likely more secure than Robertson's. And the difference in price between Van Dijk, Robertson and Trent is just not that big. So I think he is the one that I'm looking at going for. I might go for one of the others, but I think with the attack and output, the fixtures they've got, I just want to go for the best option, and that is Trent. And I think versus, or in a situation where people are maybe looking at doubling up on Liverpool and they're thinking about Trent versus Gakpo versus Darwin, I just think Trent's minutes are more secure than both of those as well. And given his attack and output, he could well outscore them. So he's definitely on the watch list. I think I'm going to bring in at least 2 of the players I've mentioned in this video. It just depends how I do the actual transfers in the end. And obviously I'll take a look at Champions League press conferences and stuff like that. But let me know what you think about the players on this watch list. Are any of you thinking about going for an Everton midfielder? Let me know in the comments below. If you've enjoyed this video, give it a like, hit subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll catch you again tomorrow.